What's going on? A to Z Sports. Sam Phelan with Easton Freeze. We are live on a Friday morning. No Austin Stanley here as he, goes off to go watch gymnastics or whatever Austin is off doing here. But Easton and I are going to hold it down. Going to have a great show for all of you today. We got some interesting things to talk about because I think this debate has been brewing for a little bit now. Easton, this is a tweet that you sent out that I took a little bit of exception to, and I think we're going to have a nice little debate today and see where the chat falls in line with everything. So I'm pumped up for this. We'll end up getting over to Will Levis, talk about the shoulder. You'll hear what the quarterback had to say at practice yesterday when Easton and I were in the locker room with Will Levis, and we'll see, is he going to play against the New England Patriots? And whose decision is it to see if Will Levis does or does not play? Got you a BetMGM bet of the day and wrapping it up with Ain't That Good News. So a lively show here on a Friday. Things are not slowing down for your Tennessee Titans despite the slow start to the season and the poor record. But Easton, welcome in. Tell the folks what to do here on a Friday.
Yeah, good morning, Sam. Look at us. The cat's away. The mice will play. We got rid of Austin today, so who knows what's going to happen. They can't tell us what to do. We can do whatever we want. We have all the power in the world. Good morning to everybody in the chat. Hope you had a great Halloween last night. Hope that the weather conditions didn't ruin any plans that you had. I had a great Halloween myself, hanging out with some family. If you're with us this morning live,
I was going to ask you what you did for Halloween. It was just
well, I've got the 3-month-old, so no trick-or-treating to do yet, but just kind of hanging out, some Halloween-y activities.
Did the 3-month-old dress up?
Sort of a pumpkin outfit, but it's not, not quite a costume
pumpkin
yet.
Outfit.
Not quite a costume. So dressed festive, but costume next year. We're already workshopping that.
What are you workshopping? Are you going to make your 1 month or 1 year and 3-month-old, make them like Traylon Burks for Halloween?
Right. I'm going to pick the scariest
really
player on the
scary.
roster.
Yeah.
The scariest thing I can think of for the Titans. For everybody that's with us live, help us out. You know what to do. Hit that like button for us this morning. We need as many likes as possible. Austin said we're both fired if we don't get to 50 likes today. So help us out. Hit the I don't know if he told you that. We got to get as many likes in here as possible. Like the show. If you're watching with us on YouTube, on Facebook, wherever you're at, join us in the comments as Ken, Richie, Titan, Tonio, Steve, Bork, Duran, and others have already done. Appreciate all of you guys this morning. I want to hear your thoughts on what should be a pretty interesting conversation.
Yep, as King Beezy says, lock in, like the show, but let's go ahead and do it officially here. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Sam Phelan. He's Easton Freeze, and this is A to Z Sports, Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings, 8 Central Time, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show tweeted out segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline. You can also check us out on TikTok, Instagram, and Threads for more great Titans content. A to Z Sports.com/Titans has written content that Easton and I are putting out every day. Got to thank our sponsors for the show today because they make it happen for us while helping out all of you. Wilson County Hyundai. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Farm Bureau Health Plans, better coverage, better rates, better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. TDOT, be part of the solution to end littering at TDOT at nobodytrashestennessee.com. And the Bone and Joint Institute, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Boneandjointtn.org is where to go to schedule your first appointment with them. So, Easton, listen, this is going to be an interesting show today, and it's going to be sort of a big picture show. With all that's going on around the Titans, I understand that interest can be fleeting in what the Titans are going to do against the New England Patriots this weekend. There's not a ton of week-to-week buy-in, but I do believe more than ever right now, Titans fans are bought in and fascinated by the big picture outlook of the organization. And I think, people are sort of all over the map as to how optimistic, pessimistic, or neutral they are on the state of the Titans, the state of head coach Brian Callahan, the state of general manager Rand Carthon. And so you put out a tweet, actually replied to a tweet last week that I found very interesting, sharing your thoughts on the state of the Titans.
Mm-hmm.
Your guy, Stoney Keeley, I've met him like twice, but friend of the program.
That's right.
Says, you guys can get pissed, hurl your tomatoes at me all you want, but I think the bones of what Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, and Chad Brinker are doing here are pretty good. So a 1-6 start, and still this idea that the bones of this organization are very good. You follow up with, he knows I agree with him. We talked about it earlier, but you think this is absolutely correct, that this is absolutely correct. So there's your opinion. And I'm curious, we'll get in a little back and forth here and have you defend it. But what about this? Go ahead and give me your, I guess, intro. If this was
the elevator pitch on the Brian Callahan era. Sure. So I was wondering, how do we approach this? Because it is such a big picture topic. I've made a pros and cons list, and then we can, if you take issue with individual things, we can go from there. But here's the reasons why, and it's not like I have all pros and no cons. There are things on both sides of this chart, but I think that there are more pros in my opinion, and more importantly, the more important things to me are on the pro side of this chart as opposed to the con side. This is for both Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon, and I mainly made the chart from a Brian Callahan standpoint because Ran Carthon, I think it's two separate conversations a little bit. Because right now in season, we're more focused on what the head coach is doing, right? Than what the general manager is doing. But from a Brian Callahan standpoint, some of the pros, he's a very effective schemer. We can talk about this. I don't know whether you agree with me or not on this, Sam, but just as somebody that watches the tape, the scheme works. It has for a while now. The scheme is not the issue. What you brought him in to do, the headline was you brought in an offensive guy that can scheme up the offense and call plays. He's doing that effectively. So you got what you paid for there, whether fans realize it or not. He's process and data driven, which for me is a big thing. I think I wrote yesterday about how organizations that are the best in the NFL are process oriented. They buck the noise. They are not emotionally short-sighted when it comes to big decision making. And I think Brian Callahan embodies that. He's also a data-driven guy, which as a nerd, that's important to me. Mm-hmm. He has this team growing in the same direction. Everybody in the building it seems to be on the same page in terms of what the vision, what the future of this team looks like, and that's important. He's keeping this locker room together, which at 1-6, you can see things get ugly in a hurry. We saw the Titans opponent this week already dealing with issues at 2-6 about their head coach making one little comment about the room being a little soft, and then things got ugly for a week, right? It's easy to lose a locker room when you aren't playing well and winning games, and so far, Brian Callahan, no signs that he has lost this locker room in any way. He's regularly accountable with us. He's very open about the mistakes that he's made, the things that he's changing, the ways that he's learning. And he's not afraid to hold specific players accountable, which I think is important and very annoying to fans when, Mike Vrabel used to get to the podium and a guy that we all were mad at talk about how it's all right. We'll get him next time kind of deal. He would take it easy on guys that were making mistakes and go harder on guys that were playing well. And I think that annoys a lot of people. Brian Callahan, the opposite. When a guy's doing well, he'll say so. When he needs to be better, he will say so at the podium, not afraid. And I think that reflects on the respect that he has in that locker room as well, because if your players don't respect you, you can't get to the podium with us and talk about how you are demanding better of them. And then he's an elite communicator. I don't think anybody disagrees with this. He's a fantastic communicator. Everybody in the press corps has been extremely pleased with him as a communicator. His PR is top-notch. All indications from talking to the players, he does a fantastic job communicating to them in the meeting rooms as well. So that's all important. On the Ran Carthon side, still pros here. And this is something we can probably get into the nitty gritty on. I think Ran Carthon's player acquisition has been definitively good as opposed to bad. It's not been perfect, not even close, but I think that he has done a good job acquiring players both in the draft and in free agency, and we can break that down a little bit. And then analytics empowerment. There's a reason why Stoney in that tweet mentioned Chad Brinker as well, because some more cynical folks amongst us like to talk about how Ran Carthon's just the figurehead. It's really the Chad Brinker show. We can get into who has more power or not if we want to. The bottom line here is that Ran Carthon is the guy running the show, and Chad Brinker has a significant amount of power because he's been empowered by Ran Carthon, him and his data team to kind of lead the way for this Titans team, again, being a process and data oriented franchise, wanting to stick by those things. Now, here are the cons. Here are the things that I do think we should be asking for improvement on. In terms of Brian Callahan, timeout management has been bad so far. At times, it's not been his fault. The players have called timeouts at weird times, but largely getting the play in has been the biggest thing for them, and they're using timeouts at poor times. That's a small but important thing in the NFL. Occasional situational management I take issue with, and we've talked about this on shows about when he chooses to run versus pass, going for it, not going for it, all of those things. I don't think it's
play
as big a deal
calling. You could add play calling in those situations,
for
right?
sure.
And
Yep,
when to get
100%.
cute and when to pound the rock, kind of a deal.
Totally. Now, I think the general issue there is overblown by folks. I think it's only been on one hand, I can count the number of situations where I've disagreed with the decision, but we can get into that. Here's one that I think most people would leave off their list, but I'm going to put on my list. Quickly figuring out the best way to tweak an offense for poor quarterback play. It's a difficult ask, but the best coaches in the NFL do it. We see the best coaches be forced into a situation where they have a less than quarterback and they make it work. And Brian Callahan has struggled to do that so far. Now, He's a first-time head coach, and so do I really expect him to be a savant when it comes to tailoring a game plan to a different quarterback? No, but it's not been good so far. So it goes on the con side of the list. And then in-game adjustments. We've talked about this one a ton. Obviously, this is more than just a Brian Callahan thing, but the buck does stop with him when it comes to adjusting the game plan as the game goes along. You've written a couple of times about how this team gets punched in the face and they don't seem to have a counter. Both what they do and the energy, right? The energy on the sideline, also a big part of that. So in-game adjustment is something that I expect or think fans should want to get better. And then for Rand Carthon, public communication. I know you and I and most of us in media would wish Rand Carthon would talk a little bit more than he does. Kind of a man in the White Castle kind of deal there, which his philosophy is in season, I don't talk. That's the coach's time. Out of season, I'll talk as the GM. But there are times when a GM should talk. I think we all agree on that. And he doesn't always take advantage of that. And then you have to include seemingly missing on a quarterback as the last one, right? Where you drafted him, I think is very important. You did not draft him in the first round. You did not draft him at 11 where you could have. You draft him in the third round. The second round, and you get a very different looking financial situation, a much more advantageous financial situation for yourself. The stakes are lower, but it does seem like you've missed, so that counts against you. So that's the full pros and cons list there. I know that was a lot. But that's the elevator pitch. And if you took issue with specific things, we can dive into those.
Yeah, we'll get into it. I'm going to kind of have a little bit of a rebuttal here, talk about some of the things that I agree with, that I disagree with. We're also going to ask the chat after we hash out some of the debate a little bit more. In fact, I'll go ahead and I'll throw that question out to all of you guys now. So after hearing Easton's elevator pitch for why he agrees, throw the tweet up, why Easton agrees that the bones of what Brian Callahan, Rand Carthon, and Chad Brinker are building are good. Do you guys in the chat agree or disagree with that idea? Agree or disagree that the bones of what this Titans regime is building are good? Let us know, and then I'll respond a little bit later. Before we do it, I'm going to tell everybody about our friends over at T-Dot. Nobody trashes Tennessee, and you want to be part of the solution. Did you know that there are over 88 million pieces of litter on Tennessee's roadways right now? It's a big problem, and we can all be part of the solution. TDOT spends over $23 million each year cleaning up litter, but they can't do it alone. You can help by simply making changes. Stop littering, pick up litter when you see it, and join local cleanups. Every action counts. Tennessee needs all of us to step up. Be part of the solution today and help keep Tennessee beautiful. Visit NobodyTrashesTennessee.com to get involved and see how you can make a difference.
We're also brought to you this morning by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. If you sign up today using our bonus code ATOZ Sports, they're going to give you up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't cash. So whether you're cheering on the Titans in the stadium or watching the game at your favorite Music City sports bar, you're always going to be able to get in on that action with the BetMGM app right in the palm of your hand. Nothing better than a Titans win, except perhaps the thrill of winning at BetMGM. Enjoy the best parlay selection options, boosted odds specials, daily promotions, so much more. Download that BetMGM app today. Sign up using our bonus code ATOZ Sports and experience the football season like never before. BetMGM, an official partner of the Tennessee Titans.
All right, Easton, go ahead and go to the chat here. We asked kind of a follow-up because you said you agree with the idea that the Titans have good bones, that what they built and the bones that the regime have built are good. We asked the chat, agree or disagree? What are you seeing?
Yeah, let's see here. Scrolling down, a lot of action in the comments this morning. We appreciate you guys. Here we go. Disagree from Anthony. Even more than he did before. Is that before or after my rant? That'd be surprising if I convinced you would disagree even more. Titans Kyle and Matt both agree that the bones are good, as does Cameron and Charles. Duran hesitantly in agreement. Kicks good disagrees. May disagree from IR Hoshi. I'm seeing more agrees than disagrees from the chat.
Are you sure
here.
You're not just choosing to see more agrees than
I'll read them in order here. Agree,
No,
agree. Surprisingly agree. disagree. So I don't know, Sam. I kind of came into today's show expecting to be Jon Snow holding up the sword against the entire army, but maybe it's not as lopsided as I think.
Yeah, I will. I mean, I'll be the first one, not the first one, but I'll be the loudest one to say that I disagree with this idea that the bones of what the Titans are building are good. Now, I do think there's obviously some nuance to this. I think it's not all good or all bad, either way that you look at it. I liked the point that you made, Easton, about I think these are different conversations for me. Whether or not I trust Brian.
I figured this would be your take.
Yeah, whether or not I trust Brian Callahan to be a head coach that can develop into a very good head coach, with some more experience, with a little bit of a better roster, with a quarterback that he handpicks. I think that's a different conversation than whether or not the front office has built something that has good bones here. Go down real quick all of your Brian Callahan centered pros for
I'll
me.
read them out just real quick.
Yeah, just
here are the Brian Callahan pros. Very effective schemer, process and data driven, has the team rowing in the same direction, has kept the locker room together so far, elite communicator, regularly accountable, not afraid to hold specific players accountable. I think I forgot to mention this one. Gives his defensive coordinator a ton of autonomy. And that's all of them.
Yeah, I would agree with all of them. The only thing I would probably push back on, I think there's a case to be made that this locker room is not great. We haven't seen any public displays of fracture, which I think is good, and that is a testament to the head coach. You can definitely make some questions about DeAndre Hopkins is standing alone by himself on the sideline and then is traded away right after the Buffalo game. And the fact that energy we talked about of the momentum shifting in a game and kind of that quit that seems to plague this Titans team.
Right.
You could view that, and I would probably say that this locker room doesn't have the amount of fight that I would like to see in it. I do think all of those are good points for Brian Callahan. I think you brought up some good negatives of Brian Callahan, but I think the good news is that none of those cons that you said about Brian Callahan are things that I think can't be fixed. They're all things that could improve with time. And that is ultimately why at 1-6, as bad as things look, as somebody who will criticize Brian Callahan for a 1-6 start, with the roster that they had coming into this year, I'm not super worried about him long term. I think that this will be fine. I don't think he's a one and done head coach. I think he will continue to be the head coach here. I think the open communicator and accountability thing are the two big pillars for me, the two big boxes that Brian Callahan checks that I think will ultimately lead to success for him as a head coach somewhere. Now, why do I say somewhere and not Tennessee? Because it could be Tennessee. But from what I've seen, I don't know if Rand Carthon's going to build him a roster to succeed with. I would very much push back on the idea that the bones of what the front office have built are good.
Okay.
Because you've now been given a top 10 draft pick and an 11th overall draft pick. You've been given more money to spend than any other team over the last 2 years in free agency. You were a top 3 spender in free agency this year. You've tried to build a roster to suit your head coach 2 years in a row. Right? We heard from Rand about, I got to put the team that's best for Mike. And he proceeded to not put a team that fit Mike Vrabel's coaching style on the field whatsoever. And then followed it up by, giving Brian Callahan a roster that I have to question the Titans' ability to do some pro scouting and even college scouting for what fits the schemes that they're trying to run, because they've spent a lot of money to bring in players who have not been nearly as effective as they should be. They've drafted, this is what I would ask you. What has the Titans front office done well over the last 2 years? Leave that open.
Player acquisition.
How?
I think that we all feel like the player acquisition has been far worse than it actually is. If we sit down and look player by player on paper, it is better than you think it is. And we can do that here in a second if you'd like.
I mean, but how do you define player acquisition? Let's start there.
Acquiring good players.
Okay. We can go down because I do think this is a lot more.
I think a lot of people are like, well, how do they have good players if they're a bad team? Which is a fair question. I think it's because you have bad players at a handful of very key positions.
I think right now, the only good thing that you can seriously point to and be like, that was great by the front office is drafting JC Latham. Because I think the early.
I think it's this entire draft class. I think you're short selling it.
I mean, look, I like T'Vondre Sweat a lot. I think he's going to develop into a really, really, really good player.
Jarvis?
Well, hang on. T'Vondre Sweat has, up to this point, been a run stopper. Right? So that's what he has been. He has not impacted.
He's been primarily a run stopper because he's a defensive tackle. That's how that works.
But as of right now, he hasn't. I mean, there were defensive tackles in the second round too that have been a little bit more effective rushing the passer and been a little bit more well-rounded than he has so far. So I think T'Vondre Sweat, good start to the career. We like where he's at. I don't think I don't think we can determine one way or another whether that was a successful pick or not. I think Jarvis Brownlee
it hasn't been the disaster a lot of people thought it was going to be. So
true, right?
I think they've cleared the fine pick bar here. Whether or not it was a great pick maybe is TBD. But most people thought, holy cow, this isn't going to work. This guy's not going to be able to even play three snaps.
Absolutely, right? People were dumb about Sweat. He was always going to have minimum.
We were in agreement on this. You were a Sweat guy. I was a Sweat guy. So we're not,
So you got a couple of picks right, potentially, if assuming Sweat really develops into the dual threat defensive tackle. You didn't really get much. I mean, like Cedric Gray,
TBD,
is kind of a nothing burger right now.
TBD.
Jarvis Brownlee, I think, has his moments and also has moments of being very inexperienced, and part of that is
but I see a starting NFL cornerback that got in the 5th round. I think he's a starter next year.
Sure.
So
yeah, I think he can be. I mean, he's playing right now. The question is, can he clean up a lot of his physicality, his penalties, some of those things that have plagued him thus far?
I think you sign up to live with that personally. I mean, that's probably a longer Jarvis situation. Can I ask you this question? Who from this draft class, who's the miss? Where they missed?
I mean, I think Cedric Gray thus far is a miss.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's since we've literally not seen him yet because of an injury.
And when we did see him, he was like linebacker 6.
In May, sure.
I mean, he's back now, and they're not planning to play him on defense.
He's been back for 10 seconds.
Sure, I'm just saying. The thought was that when you
I'm with you that the most likely person right now to be a miss of this draft class is Cedric Gray, but I am not willing to close.
I mean, and then it's a bunch of guys that are in like late rounds that I think you shrug your shoulders at because it's late round guys, so they don't really need to have.
But they've been more effective than the vast majority of late round guys. Like Jalen Harrell as a 7th round pick has been. I bet if we went through every 7th round pick this year on every team, Jalen Harrell might be the most the closest thing to a hit. I like James Williams a lot.
Let's not ignore the year before, though. Let's not ignore the year before. Because
this is where it's an interesting conversation. The year before.
Maybe is not.
I think this year is not.
There's maybe not a good pick in Rand's first draft.
I mean, I disagree that Tajay Spears was a bad pick. I think that it's been a difficult.
I like Tajay
so far,
Spears,
but
I think we like Tajay Spears more than the Titans even like Tajay Spears because
you do.
I think I do.
I think I do too, actually.
I think I was in on Tajay, and the fact that the Titans are because you drafted a running back in the 3rd round, but you drafted a running back in the 3rd round that you're then sitting behind Derrick Henry, which everybody understood.
Got to do it.
And then paying another running back to come in and take the lion's share of his carries. So how effective has Tajay really been for the Titans on offense? Not all that for a 3rd round pick. And there's a lot of talent out there for a 3rd round pick. Like if you were going to get a running back that you only use in certain sets and is not a primary back, you could have gotten that guy in the 6th round. You didn't need to use a 3rd round top 100 pick on that running back. I think Tajay's a better player than the Titans are even using him to be. Peter Skoronski is fine, but he is a fine guard, and drafting a fine guard at 11th overall to me is a miss. You drafted a quarterback in the 2nd round after trading up draft capital. That looks like a miss. I think Josh Wiley is solid for what he does, but he's a secondary tight end. I'm not going to celebrate drafting a secondary tight end.
Well, I mean, I think you can say Josh Wiley was the most definitive hit from that draft class, given where they drafted him.
Right. I mean, like,
Right.
you really could.
With
I mean,
Spears,
Colton
I
Dowell's
think
been
Spears is a guy that I think is too early as well, because I mean, look at the two guys he's been behind. They've
sure.
been the case study for Spears. Derrick Henry also spent 2.5 years being the situational guy. Tony Pollard spent 2.5 years being the situational guy. Both flourished into starting caliber running backs. And also, I think this year has us a little prisoner of the moment on Spears because the injury has hampered him for the
I agree.
majority of it.
No, I mean, look, I was expecting big things from Tajay Spears this year, and I've been a little bit disappointed at just like his lack of usage in the Titans offense. The fact that it's been so heavily Tony Pollard.
But it's because Tony's been awesome. Like, he's given
been
him no
very
choice.
good.
It's not because Tajay's been bad, in my opinion. I think it's because Tony's just been
I think
that
Tajay
much
has
better.
struggled a lot with vision this year. His vision has really struggled this year for me from what I was
It's honestly been so long since we've seen him. I'd have to go back and watch it, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's
so I look
ready to get him
and
back.
I look at the draft as a whole, and I cannot look at these two drafts as a win. I think there's a lot of missed opportunity here. I think there's a lot of questionable decisions in the draft. I think there are some bright spots scattered throughout of some good decisions that were made. But outside of like the JC Latham pick is, to me, the only pick that is a resounding win at this point from two drafts.
I disagree with you on that. Here's how I see it, just plain and simple. I think that his first year draft it's currently looking kind of meh for sure. I respect.
How can you even say meh? I mean, like you got a guard and a quarterback that doesn't.
Because
isn't your guy.
Think about drafts and like just any given team's draft any given year. A bad draft is where guys are definitive. Like, think back to some late John Robinson drafts. Those are bad drafts where guys are busts. While the Titans' first year of Ran Carthon draft, nobody looks like a star. Who looks like a total bust? None of them.
Yeah, I mean the quarterback.
Levis is the closest thing to it.
If he ends up not being your quarterback next year,
right? Sure,
that's a huge miss for
sure. But you've got starters or rotational backups at every position. Like he's not had any strikeouts. That's kind of my point. But I'm willing to say that his first year draft was slightly below average in terms of what you're hoping for. I think that his second year draft, and again, it's incredibly early, so we don't know for sure.
Yeah,
I think this past year's draft.
It's off to a good start.
I think it's off to a good start. I think, and also I think it's important to note, like, we can't ever really know for sure how much autonomy Ran Carthon had that first year because Mike Vrabel was in the room. And, we immediately after draft night heard the rumors about like, well, Ran Carthon kind of wants Zay Flowers in the first round, but they ended up going with Peter Skoronski. Not sure why that decision happened. Like, we can't know. Maybe it was all him, but this year is the first year we know for sure it was the Ran Carthon show in there. No question about it. I think this Carthon conversation may take us longer. Can we flip back to Callahan? Because I'm surprised by how much we agree on this. And I just have one more point to make on the Callahan situation, because again, we are in season. And I do think folks are more, they certainly are more critical of Callahan right now than they are of Ran Carthon. At least that's what I'm seeing. The thing that I think is important here,
maybe that's the case. Being more critical of Brian Callahan than Ran Carthon is freaking crazy. I agree. That's loony bin.
We're on the same page there.
You have a general manager that spent $240 million, prided himself on pro scouting and player development and all of these things, and he has not been able to field a competent team either year. I mean, you can say what you want about the players that they're bringing in, whatever. I mean, you went and got Chidobe Awuzie, who's hurt. You went and got L'Jarius Sneed, who's hurt and not very good when he's healthy. You got Calvin Ridley, who good, but you haven't been able to effectively use him in your scheme.
Your quarterback hasn't been able to effectively get him the ball. You've been using him.
I mean, there's been a handful of issues. It's always been something.
He's open every week on film. He's open every week. They just happened to finally throw the ball to the open guy this week. Like,
well, yeah. I mean, I would love to see them continue to go to Calvin Ridley in the future, like with more frequency. Your defensive
Tony Pollard's been the best player on the team. Don't forget him.
Tony Pollard's been very good. Your defensive acquisitions have kind of been flops for the most part. The only guy that, Kenneth Murray is okay, but he makes life more difficult for whatever linebacker is next to him. Quandre Diggs has been fine.
Oh, I think Quandre has been more than fine. I disagree there. I think Quandre has been a really nice addition for this team. He might be the best defensive addition they have, frankly.
He might be the best defensive addition they've had for sure. I think Ernest Jones came in and is a good player that you brought into a scheme that didn't suit Ernest Jones whatsoever because you were asking him to play next to Kenneth Murray, which is a guy that you gave a 3-year big contract to. Arden Key has been.
Don't just skate over the business of Ernest Jones. I mean, from a GM standpoint,
sure, but
that was good.
I'm not going to celebrate you for bringing in a guy that you're supposed to bring in to contribute 1 year and then ship out the next year.
You're saying they should have kept him?
I'm saying that as much
an
as
opportunity to get more for selling him than you paid
as
for.
much as you can celebrate the fact that you got more for him than you bought him for, you did not acquire Ernest Jones to be a return on investment guy. You acquired Ernest Jones to be a contributor to a contending defense.
You didn't acquire it. You never acquire anybody to be a return on investment guy, but we live in a different world today than we did 6 weeks ago. Like, you got to live in the present there. And I think that they did a good job of that.
Because here is ultimately something that I want to address. If you believe that Will Levis is the real problem,
the only problem, right?
The only problem, you don't know what you're talking about. You cannot watch this team and say that they are a quarterback, an edge rusher, and whatever, and a right tackle away from contending. There are leaps and bounds between the Titans and the Detroit Lions and the best teams in the NFL. Do the Titans flip a few results with a better quarterback and maybe sit at 3-4 right now? Yes. But they are the worst team in the NFL in the last 2 calendar years. The worst team in the NFL.
By record,
right? So, I don't know. I can't do the song and dance, cheering about how great the front office and the regime is and how great Brian Callahan is. They're really building things. You spent $240 million to be the worst team in the sport. Why are we celebrating this? There's so much broken here. There's so much that has missed. You spent a lot of money on Lloyd Cushenberry, who's been fine.
Been an upgrade.
You banked as an organization. You scouted your own personnel and said, we're good enough at right tackle. And all 5 guys that you had suck. And your right guard isn't that very good. What do you mean you disagree? They had the cap space to go get a right tackle. They chose not to.
Where were the right tackles, Sam? Where were they? Who?
You can go draft.
They weren't available. There aren't tackles just out there floating on the ether to be picked off the tree like an apple. They didn't exist.
There were
slight upgrades, but there were no franchise right tackles. There were guys that were just slightly less problematic. There were no good right tackles available. There weren't.
I would have to pull up the free agent list, but there were guys available that are certainly better than what they've thrown up recently.
So let me address what you just said, because I really agreed with you, and then I really disagreed with you. What you said at the beginning was people thinking that Will Levis is the only problem, and that's crazy. You know how I know this, Sam? Is because the last 2 weeks, and I know a lot of people have been doing other things on Sundays. The last 2 weeks, Will Levis has not been the quarterback, and they've been beaten.
Same team.
They've been beaten approximately 170,000 to 4. So it's not just been Will Levis. And the reason why you lost me a little bit is because you said if you think this team is a quarterback, right tackle, and an edge rush away from you said contending. So I agree with you that they're not those 3 players away from contending and being a Detroit Lions team. But I do think the majority of their on-field problems are literally they don't have a quarterback that can get the ball to open guys. They don't have a right tackle that can block, and they don't have an edge rush that can do anything.
Let me clarify though, because obviously the quarterback thing, obviously if you insert an elite quarterback on this team, it changes things. Elite quarterbacks transform teams, right?
But I'm not even talking elite.
I'm not talking about
serviceable. I'm talking about an average quarterback.
That's what I'm saying this year, right? If you put Sam Darnold on this team right now, because I know that that's a name that some people are looking at for this next offseason. Sure. I don't think Sam Darnold fixes any of your problems right now.
Oh, I disagree.
I don't think
he would be your average quarterback. I do.
Sam Darnold is on par. He's a slightly better Mason Rudolph, and
I disagree.
Rudolph was a guy that they loved for all of the same reasons. You just look at the free agent market for Sam Darnold versus what the free agent market was for Mason Rudolph. There's not a massive
be here in a couple of months. He's not look at what's going to be here in a couple of months. It's because
Well,
Sam
no,
Darnold's
I'm
been
saying
on the
last year's free
back
agent.
burner.
Was Sam Darnold a free agent last year? Signed with the Vikings?
I don't know if he was a free agent or they traded. If it may have been like a really low stakes trade. The
I mean, a
point
lot
was he
of
wasn't
these
highly valued, was your point. So
a lot of these guys get these like 1-year deals as veterans that have had success in different schemes. And Mason Rudolph was a guy that had won a lot of football games and been a little bit more effective playing for the Steelers with a better offensive line and better pass protection and some weapons. And none of those things are here in Tennessee. I think things are a little bit broken. I still think Brian Callahan is figuring out how to get his scheme to fit his personnel, like you said, when he maybe doesn't have Joe Burrow. Now what do you do?
sure.
He's used to having the best quarterback in the league at doing the one thing Brian Callahan wants them to do, which is complete balls and have.
Well, I was thinking about this the other day, Sam. Go further than Burrow. Like think about when we were all writing about his track record of like quarterbacks he's worked with.
Oh, it's all high completion.
Yeah, it's like Brian Callahan's
like,
been working with Matt Stafford, Peyton Manning, Derek Carr, Joe Burrow. Oh, you mean guys that just complete balls? And then he's working with this
guys
like
that have 68%
so different than
completion
anything,
percentages.
right? So different than anything he's ever had.
Yeah. So I mean, like, I don't know. 5 years from now, let's go right now, Easton. 5 years from right now.
Okay.
I'll be generous. 3 years from right now.
Okay.
How many players currently on the Titans roster are still on the team 3 years from now?
Sure. Okay. I mean, the entire most recent draft class is all still here. The first Rand Carthon draft class, that would be their fourth year for most of those guys.
So no, it would be let's do 3 seasons from now. So it would be year 5. It'd be the 5th year option for that class.
Okay, so still the most recent draft class all still here. I do think Peter Skoronski is still here. I would bet on that.
You think he's an exercise 5th year option guy?
By then, I do
at $20 million or whatever.
I think if he continues to work alongside J.C. Latham and Lloyd Cushenberry and continues to be coached by Bill Callahan, I do think that he's the guy that can get there. And I've talked about this. The Peter Skoronski Peter Skoronski experience this year has been like just me watching him on tape. I've been in a blender. I don't know what to make of it because every game he has a dozen plays where you're like, holy crap, this guy is one of the best lineman in the entire league. He's figuring it out. And then he has a half dozen plays where you're like, the hell was that? You're a god athlete and you're on the ground. What's happening right now? So it has been, but I think because you're seeing those flashes with a guy like Bill Callahan, I do think you iron that out because he is such a high level traits guy. Peter Skoronski he's a god athlete at that position. Mm-hmm. He should be able to figure it out. So I think eventually it will work. So Skoronski, I don't believe Levis is likely to still be around. Spears, I because I do think really highly of him, and because I do think he could be one of those guys that is a secondary guy for a couple years and then becomes the primary guy. I'll say that he is still around. It's really injuries is my only question. It's not ability. I think if he's too injured, then that's going to derail it. But if he stays healthy, I think that he can still be around. I think Josh Riley has, he's a guy that is a useful tight end to you, the kind of guy teams keep around. And then I'm trying to think of like veterans like that, this team's likely to turn over. Other than that, I think Dylan Radins could still be around. I do. I think that he's a guy that they're probably going to want to sign again.
You think Dylan Radins is going to get a 3-year deal with this team after this offseason?
I don't know if it'll all be this offseason, but he may get another year. And then if it continues at the rate that it is, I do think that he's a long-term guy. I do. I think that he's a starting guard in the NFL. But to your point, I think what you were trying to get at is this team is likely to turn over a lot, but that's in large part because of the way that they've structured it. Because they said to here's what I take issue with if we're flipping back to the Carthon thing. And you said it a little bit ago, this idea that they spent all this money to be a contender this offseason. They spent more money than God in free agency and look at what has happened. They got their fans' hopes up.
I would disagree. I don't think they spent money to be a contender. I think they spent money to be. Fair enough. I think they spent money to be improved and to build a roster.
Money to be able to evaluate Will Levis. I think that's what they spent money for.
Yeah, right. They wanted to build a team around the quarterback and build the foundation, regardless of whether Will was the guy or was not the guy. They wanted to spend money to build the foundation. You spent money for a horrible foundation. because the guys that they brought in are not guys that are going to be here 3-4 years from now. They're not guys that are.
But that has as much to do with the quarterback situation as it does with their talent. Like Tony Pollard's a talented enough player to be
I
around
love
that
Tony.
long.
Yeah, I'm not.
But he's too expensive to keep around if you start over. You know what I mean?
Well, right, and that in itself is a problem. Like
but that's not a reflection on the player or the evaluation of the player. That's a reflection on the team having to start over.
I agree. And why does the team have to start over?
Because of the quarterback.
And who drafted the quarterback?
Where did I put it on the list? That's a con. You missed on the quarterback.
Con. I mean,
that wasn't it. Sure. But that's the biggest con for every team, right? Like every team's biggest pro or con is you hit on the quarterback or you missed on the quarterback. That's for everybody.
Yeah. I mean, and you got to.
If we just want to,
and I don't
GM evaluation this binary thing across the league where it's like, did you or did you not hit on a quarterback? That makes you a good or a bad GM.
If you remove Will Levis and Mason Rudolph right now, let's say right now that this is the team as it was, as we have to end this conversation because we're way off the rails for our show time. If you remove those two guys and put in a rookie, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, whoever it might be that you're drafting, do you think the Titans are well positioned with a foundation that will support that young quarterback? I do not.
It's such a loaded question because I don't really like this rookie class. But like if we're assuming the quarterback in question is somebody that I think can succeed in the NFL, let's just say it's somebody that I have full faith in. Like this guy can work. As is, no, because you need a right tackle. So, but like the rest, I really don't have issue with anything else. So. I really don't. Is it perfect? No.
I think that is.
I don't think it's perfect.
I just think that is so wishful thinking. That is such an optimistic point of view to really believe that this team is a right tackle and a quarterback, like not even a quarterback, an average quarterback and a right tackle away from being good versus being the worst team in the league. I just think that's an insane
You yourself
jump.
said earlier that a quarterback that hits changes everything.
A quarterback that hits, but we're saying an average quarterback, a rookie, and so somebody that comes in. Have you built the foundation?
And the way that a rookie quarterback hits is by putting the way that you support the way that a quarterback hits is when they're put into a position where they're supported. And Sam, the reason why I'm being wishful here. The reason why I think this is because when I sit down and I watch the tape, I see a scheme that works. I see talented skill players that are open. And when they get the ball in their hand, they make things happen. And the ball's not getting into their hand because the quarterback is bad and he's not protected.
Explain this to me. Why is Will Levis better as a rookie than he is this year? With a scheme that gets everybody wide open and all these talented weapons, why is Will Levis succeeding as a rookie and failing this year?
So this is a big conversation that we don't have time for. I think that there were like 2 games last year that kind of skewed our opinion of Will Levis, where he kind of just blacked out and looked awesome. The rest of the games looked relatively similar to what he's looked like this year, but also just the fact that the trajectory has been down. I don't think that's a symptom of the rest of the team so much as it's just a quarterback that just doesn't have it. Like, I think that's a Will Levis issue, not a rest of the team issue. I do. And maybe it's a fit issue as well. Maybe it's Will Levis, just this new scheme, just not the kind of player for that, which, I don't think that's a crazy idea, is that Will Levis is not the most well-equipped quarterback for, I think that the way that defenses are playing this year, I've said this on the show before, I think the way that defenses are playing this year is like built in a lab to destroy a Will Levis style quarterback.
I would agree with that.
And so it's a tough break. Like, he doesn't have the chops to live in the 2024 NFL landscape.
Maybe. Maybe. I mean, okay. 2024, clearly, right? But I think, the trajectory of Levis was an interesting thing to monitor before the injury.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
This is where I was going a moment ago. The whole spending money, why do they spend all that money? I take issue with this idea because it's a bottom line thing for me. They needed players. They had money on the cap that they literally had to spend because there's a minimum. And also, what's the point of sitting on it? It doesn't do you any good.
Sure.
They spent the money and they got players. Like, what were they supposed to do? Not spend the money?
Spend money on good players. I mean, like, I don't hate the idea.
It's hard in free agency. It's really hard.
Right. I mean, I don't hate the idea of the Titans spending some money last year to try and improve their team. But this is where I struggle, is because you've spent money now 2 straight off seasons. You've made moves to turn over the roster in 2 straight off seasons, and you've still continually gotten worse. You brought in, Rand has been able to pick his head coach, who is then able to handpick his staff. You've been able to pick every little thing about your roster because you've had the money to do so, and you still suck. And so I can't do the song and dance of like, the bones are good, the bones are good, the bones are good. I have a lot of questions about their ability to build a foundation of a team, about their ability to build something that works, to equip a coach with an idea, with a roster that then complements those ideas. I don't know if they can do that. I think the jury is still out on that. So all hope is not lost for me when it comes to the Titans. I think there are some good things to celebrate. I think there are some good things to look forward to in the future. I spoke on the show earlier, I believe it was last week, maybe even this week, about how if you hit on a quarterback in the first round, none of it's going to matter because your quarterback's going to be good enough that your team's going to be relevant enough. But
look at the Commanders.
Yeah, right.
Spent a lot of money on some crappy players
wrong,
this year. Nobody cares. Nobody cares.
The Commanders did everything wrong, spent money on a bunch of players that suck, but got the quarterback right. And everybody's like, oh,
and no one's talking about it. Yeah, exactly.
Right. No, and I think that's exactly where the Titans are at this point. But I would say unequivocally, the last 2 years for Rand Carthon have been a failure.
I disagree. Obviously,
I think Rand Carthon's tenure as general manager up to this point has been a failure. And I think your record is the reflection of that. So
people in the chat have me distracted here. What does this look like to you, Sam?
Coffee.
Every day I drink out of it's because I'm drinking out of a clear. People are like, are you drinking water from a storm drain? No, it's like, quit gaslighting me. I know what you people in the I know you've seen coffee before.
It's simply coffee that's not black coffee.
That's right. It's got a little creamer in it. Sue me. Anyways, bottom line, if I go player by player, I just don't, if I'm looking at guys that are Rand Carthon guys, largely guys that he's tied himself to either because he's drafted them or he signed them in free agency or he's had an opportunity to get rid of them because they were here already, but he's kept them as
it's also
guys.
I think it's crazy that the chat is saying it's a crazy take to say that up to this point, Rand Carthon's tenure has been a failure. They're the worst team in the NFL.
Oh, I don't think it's a crazy take. I just disagree, but I don't think it's crazy. I don't think it's crazy.
They are the worst. Is it a chat? Yes or no? Next question of the show today. Yes or no? Good to be worst team in NFL. Good to lose game. Yes,
good
no.
To have 7 wins in the last 7 years. Yeah, exactly.
What are we doing? Y'all have to have some standards. Damn, bro. It's because of Levis. Guess who drafted him?
All right,
who was the GM that drafted him?
It was Amy. Don't you know? Amy is the one that drafted Will. I've heard that on the radio for real, but I don't believe it. And we do want to move on here. I'll say my last piece, and then you can say your piece, and we can move.
No, we got to move on.
I know. Guys that he has tied himself to. I see good players. Tony Pollard, good player. Tajay Spears, I believe he's a good player. Calvin Ridley, I think that he's going to prove down the stretch that he was a good acquisition. I do think that's as long as the quarterback can just get him the damn ball, I think it's going to work out. J.C. Latham, nobody disagrees on that. Peter Skoronski, TBD, but I do think that he's going to work out. Lloyd Cushenberry, maybe people are upset that it's not been amazing, but he has definitively been an upgrade at center that you got in free agency. T'Vondre Sweat, we can disagree on maybe the upside there, but so far he has been a good starting player. L'Jarius Sneed, very TBD, right? I still have faith in L'Jarius Sneed as a player. I think it's been a rocky start so far, and I think he's been more banged up than we realized, and that's hampered him a lot. But I do think that can eventually work out. Jarvis Brownlee, I love. Roger McCreary, I love, who he's kept. He's featured.
Not drafted by Rand.
Right, but a guy that he is choosing as a cornerstone player of his defense. He could have gotten rid of Roger McCreary at any point.
I mean, he was on a rookie contract. I don't like. He's still on a rookie.
He's a valuable player. You could move him. It's selling time. You can move him.
Okay. I think that's a questionable one.
Okay, fine. Amani Hooker, another guy that he's kept around, could have moved him, could have gotten rid of him.
Amani Hooker's overpaid, but
he's a good player.
Sure.
And he's not the one that chose how much to pay him. And then guys like, Jalen Harrell, James Williams, Jaquan Jackson, Dylan Radins, Quandre Diggs. Yeah. These are guys that Rand Carthon has tied himself to that I think are good players.
This is the thing for me, though, is like, and whatever, we'll wrap this up. Last thing. I think a lot of people right now like to pick and choose what they give Rand Carthon credit for and what they blame Rand Carthon for.
I agree with that.
Keeping around Roger McCreary, who he did not draft and he's not in control of his contract, that's a feather in Rand's cap.
Fine, take him off my list. I think my list
being
still
around
stands.
Amani
Take him off.
Hooker is a feather in Rand's cap.
Take him off.
Overpaying
The
Amani
list
Hooker
stands.
isn't Rand's fault because he didn't do it, but he gets credit for the guy that did do it. I think there's a lot of picking and choosing on what we hold Rand accountable for and what we choose to pass off blame onto somebody else for. We got to move on. We got to get Will Levis. We got to talk about the quarterback situation this week.
Back to the present.
Man, I'm all over the place now. Yeah, back to the present. Before we do it, going to tell everybody about Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans, maybe something that Will Levis needs with his current injury situation. Better coverage, better rates, and better service. Learn more about a plan for you at fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans has been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years, and when a lot has changed in Tennessee over the years, some things stay the same, like Farm Bureau Health Plans always valuing personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. You can plan on them for health, dental, and vision. For better rates, better coverage, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200-plus locations across the state.
We're also brought to you by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. Sign up using our bonus code ATOZ Sports today to get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets. Sam, would you believe me if I told you the Titans are not only favorites this week, but the line has been moving in their favor. Now they are now over a field goal favorite this week, -3.5, the Titans.
I think it makes sense. You're at home.
Okay. All right. Well, if you are so inclined to sign up for a bet on the Titans this week, do so at BetMGM. Use our bonus code ATOZ Sports. And if the Titans let you down once again, don't worry. They got you covered. You get your money back.
All right. Real quick, we're going to talk Will Levis's shoulder. Been an interesting situation over the last month or so with Will Levis and his shoulder, and whether or not he's going to play against the Patriots on Sunday still remains a question. The quarterback spoke to the media. I got a couple questions into Will to ask about how he's feeling. This idea that has been pretty clear from Brian Callahan and the coaching staff that they're going to push Will Levis a little bit harder this week than they did the last time, because Easton, they tested him before the game against the Colts. Levis told him he was good to go. He was not good to go. He dropped the ball, was not healthy enough to perform in that game, and the Titans lost because of it. So what's different this week? More push coming to Levis. Here's the quarterback in the locker room on Thursday.
I feel good. It's been a long process, but we'll see for Sunday. It's been frustrating, but I feel like I'm finally starting to get to a point where I'm comfortable.
Feel more likely than not likely you'll be able to go Sunday, or
I don't know. To be determined. We'll see.
I know the big thing was throwing in back-to-back days. You got to do that. How's that been for you?
Yeah, good. That's part of the process, is dealing with the recovery and the fatigue and that. So it was good to get out there and throw it around a little bit today. And, felt pretty good.
Brian and Nick have said that they're pushing you a little bit more this time around than they did before the Indy game, just to kind of see what the shoulder feels like. Has that been, I guess, more helpful for you to even know how you're feeling as you try and make a determination of what you can and can't do?
For sure. I want to see myself, make all the throws that I know I'm capable of before I go out there and do the real thing. So they're doing it the right way, I think, and I'm just doing the best that I can.
Will, how do you take this time when you are on the sideline, dealing with the injury, to look at maybe the game and what's happening from a different perspective?
Yeah, no, I think it allows you to take in more and focus on other aspects of the game that you might not really be able to put as much focus in if you're actually in the heat of it and playing. So that's been fun. And then, still just being the leader and, the captain that I am for this team, and being the best that I can on the sidelines for all the groups. So still approaching, have approached each of these past few weeks, as if I'm playing, and how I'm involving myself in the meetings and everything. So I feel like I've gotten a lot better, even though I haven't played over the last few weeks.
Did you grow up a Patriots fan, and does that make this week even? I mean, I know you always want to play, but knowing that that's the opponent.
Yeah, no, I was a big Patriots fan growing up, and it definitely is cool to be playing against the team that you were once cheering for. So that's in the past, though, and I'm not going to let that affect my decision.
How you feeling strength-wise in the shoulder? Does it feel like it's getting back to where it needs to be?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of improvement in the last couple of weeks. Like I said, that's just what I'm trying to get, is that strength and ability to make the throws that I know I'm capable of, and I feel good, and we just got to see for Sunday.
Do you feel like it is your decision?
Yeah, no, it is. I think that it's hard for me to make that decision for myself. Obviously with going and playing against Indy, and that in retrospect not being the best decision of not stepping up and saying something. But it is, like, these coaches just made it very clear to me that I need to be honest with how I'm feeling, so that, you know, the right decision can be made.
How do you
All right, so Easton, some updates there, but really the end is that part that
Yep.
I think is very interesting. Will Levis talks about growing up a Patriots fan, says, well, I really want to play, but I'm not going to let it affect my decision. And my ears kind of perked up when I heard that, when he says, not going to let it affect my decision, which is why I then follow up by saying, wait, so this is your decision to Will? And he says, yeah, it is. You know, this is my decision that I get to make. And he wants to make sure he makes the right decision. The coaches have been clear that he needs to be honest with how he's feeling. So we wanted to talk about it real quick this morning and ask everybody, is it fair or foul to think Will Levis gets to decide whether or not he starts for the Titans this week? Fair or foul, Will Levis gets to decide. Is it his decision? Easton, I'll let you start.
I think it's foul, but not because it's foul that the Titans are letting him make the decision. I think it's foul because I don't think it's his decision. I think it's Will's decision whether he plays or not. Like, it's my decision where my wife and I go to dinner. I throw out the idea, but who has the final say? Not me. You know, like I don't know, Sam. I think it's crazy to think that this coaching staff is just whatever Will says. I don't think that's happening.
You know, it's hard because I think on the surface, you're right. Like, you can't just be like whatever Will says. But at the end of the day, Will is also the only one who knows what Will feels. And so if he is making the throws necessary and passing the eye test that you would like him to pass in practice, which, you know, I think Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz failed at this last time around, was not having the eye test be hard enough. Will was able to pass the eye test because the eye test was not super difficult. So then you're like, all right, well, he looks okay. Will, how are you feeling? Will says, I feel good. Let's roll. And then it rolls into the game and you realize, we didn't push him hard enough.
Right.
So you're now pushing him a little bit harder, making that eye test a little bit more difficult and hoping that you get answers. So if he passes the eye test, I do think this is Will Levis's decision, because I do think it comes down to how comfortable are you throwing the ball? How do you feel? If he looks fine, then it's on Will to tell them whether or not he feels fine. And that is the decision that he has to make.
Yeah, I think that framing is fair. I just, you know, and your point about what happened the first time is important for folks. If people aren't 100% clear on what has happened, we don't know this, but I think you and I agree. Everything we've seen and heard, I think the coaching staff was pretty pissed off about the Indianapolis situation. I think they felt kind of bamboozled by that week of practice and by what Will Levis said to them. You know, if you caught it there in that
which clip, I think is separate conversation. I think is unreasonable of them to be pissed off or bamboozled, because you want your quarterback to want to play. You want your quarterback.
You and I agree.
You want your quarterback to be like, no, hey, coach, I'm good, man. Don't worry about the shoulder. Put me in. That's what you want. You want players that you don't want Anthony Richardsons who are like, hey, maybe let me take a play off real quick.
Tired. Yeah.
Hey, Joe, get in here. No, you want Will Levis to want to suit up and want to go out there and play for you, no doubt. And
this is coaching 101 at any level in any sport.
Protect your guy from himself.
It's the coach's job to protect the players from themselves. This is not hard.
Yeah, so you as a coach need to make sure Will Levis is good enough to go, because you know that he also has a bulldog mindset and wants to play like crazy. So that is on Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz. I don't know if they should feel bamboozled or angry. Maybe you're frustrated with the way that, you know, it went. You're frustrated with the way that, you know, that Will wasn't super honest with you, but you also need to maybe expect that a quarterback who really wants to play football isn't always going to be super honest about the fact that he isn't healthy enough to play football.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But whether it's fair or not, I think they were pissed off. And in hindsight, they're mad that, to your point, their focus the week before Indy was about resting him and just kind of trying it out and not pushing him in game conditions, getting the ball downfield. But if you caught it there in the clip, Will said, the coaches have had conversations with me. It's been made very clear that it's important
to
for
be
me to be
honest.
100% honest
Yeah.
about how I feel. And I wish I would have spoken up and said something. That sounds like a guy that knew in his heart this might be a bad idea, but you know what? I'm a gamer.
Yeah, well,
I want to play.
He convinced himself that he could do enough to win the game. And, you know, after that game against Indy, I can't hear you. I think your mic went out again.
Hello?
Oh, no, you're back.
That's what athletes do, right? That's what they do.
That's what athletes do. And so that is where the burden is on the coaching staff. So is it fair or foul? I think it is fair for it to be Will's decision, given
He passes
the
the
fact that
test.
you test him harder and he has to pass the test. But if it's Will's decision and Will makes the wrong decision, that's on you, not
him.
on Will. You need to, like, if there's a chance that Will can make the wrong decision. So actually, all right, I just talked myself out of it. Foul. Because Will Levis shouldn't have a decision to make. Will Levis's decision should always be, I want to play football. And
Right.
the burden is on you as a coach to not have him make a decision. I don't think Will Levis can make the wrong decision necessarily. He's going to be like, hey, let me play. You have to evaluate your quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
You have to test your quarterback. You have to know what he's capable of doing physically. And then you have to protect your guy from himself and do what's best for the football team. And if it's not Will Levis, it's not Will Levis. And you need to tell Will that. And I'm sure he will get it, right? He's not going to be pissed that you didn't let him play when he had a bum shoulder. So
I'm so pleased we agree on this. We came around. We got there.
Yeah, I don't know. I worked my way there.
I think your original point was fair, but ultimately we're agreeing that a player's job is to try to play no matter what, and a coach's job is to protect players from themselves. And if we're being real about this,
if you're blindly going in and saying, "Hey, Will, do you want to play this week or not play this week?"
the answer is always yes.
You've done something horribly wrong as well as a coach.
His ankle could be sideways. He's going to say, "Yeah, I want to play this week. Of course, I want to play this week." And if we're being real about this, like I don't think there's a world in which he passes the test with flying colors this week. It's going to be a muddy, well, you know, it looked better. We pushed him harder. He got the ball downfield. The fatigue was not as bad, but at the end of practice, we're asking, hey, Will, how do you feel? And he's saying, you know, kind of sore, but better. So that's where the coaches have to say, this is not super black or white. We've got to make a judgment call here.
Yeah.
And the first time they were wrong. So it's on them to make that call right now. By the way, Sam, just we can share gut check.
I think it's Mason Rudolph.
I don't think Will's playing. I think it's one more week.
I think given the disaster that was Indy, I just think there is such a remorse and regret from Brian Callahan and Nick Holtz and the offensive staff about the fact that Will played in that game, that if there is a shadow of a doubt, I believe they will play it safe and go with Rudolph, because Rudolph,
I know that part for sure. I've heard from a member of the staff say we refuse to let the Indianapolis situation happen again. It was
right. And so I think you're right, though. I think like it's going to be really hard. Even Will speaking there is like, yeah, you know, we'll see. Like, you know, it's getting better. Like we're feeling it out still. That to me is not, I feel good and I'm ready to go. And if it's not, I feel good and I'm ready to go, then it's probably not Will Levis at quarterback. I think it's Rudolph this week. Levis is back next week. It's unfortunate because I think New England would have been a good little tune-up confidence game for Levis, because it's a game that the Titans can absolutely win. But I think that's where you're at right now.
Now he gets a chance to torch some former teammates against the Chargers. Don't even worry about it. The Titans West
target Fulton.
That's right.
Find Fulton and throw the ball that way.
Shove him in a locker all day. Yeah. That's going to be the idea. I'm with you. I think it's, you know, today will be telling, and we may or may not find out here in a couple hours from Brian Callahan who it's going to be. I'm going to guess he's just questionable for a third straight week, and it's probably another game time decision, but I don't think it's going to be him.
All right. Well, maybe he would get healthy and went to, that's not the right one. The Bone and Joint Institute. The Bone and Joint Institute is the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Go to boneandjointtn.org, because whenever you get hurt in life, whether it's a shoulder injury and a sprained AC joint or anything else, the Bone and Joint Institute is located in Franklin with over a dozen specialists who can help you through any type of injury. Located right off the highway, easy access. They can do everything under one roof for your convenience: clinic, testing, imaging, surgery, rehab. So schedule an appointment with them at boneandjointtn.org.
We're also brought to you by BetMGM, the sports book born in Vegas. Sam, it's a Friday. Got the game coming up. Just, you know, the props are still.
You got to bet?
I got to bet. It's tough because when a quarterback situation is uncertain, the books don't put out props. It's because they don't know who's throwing the ball. But I did find one from the limited selection. Tony Pollard is plus money to score a touchdown. And in a game that I think is going to be pretty gritty and grimy against a New England team that also likes to play that style of football, the New England
So
defense.
Are you saying you're anti-Julius Chestnut goal line package?
Well, listen, the Julius Chestnut anytime touchdown is only plus 175. That's terrible odds. It's terrible.
New conspiracy theory, by the way. Brian Callahan and the staff are juicing the line on Tony Pollard touchdown by throwing the ball on the 1 yard line 4 times. And now all of a sudden Vegas is like, hey, these guys are dumb. They're not going to run the ball at all on the one. And now
it's the long con.
Now you bet the house on Tony Pollard, and this is where it comes back.
Yeah, so Tony Pollard plus 100. That's what I'm putting my money on with my bonus bets that I got over at BetMGM because I signed up using bonus code ATOZ Sports to get up to $1,500 bonus bucks back on your bet. Sure, let's go with that. And you know what? I put $1,500 on it. So we're gonna ride. Tony Pollard better score this weekend.
You put $1,500 on it?
Let's say that I did. No, of course not.
I don't tease people like that. You're gonna get people excited.
We're riding and dying with Easton's $1,500 on Sunday.
Yeah,
no, I did not quite that much money.
Reminded me of me and Zach Bingham on the Super Bowl when it was.
I wouldn't make it to Sunday. My wife would kill me.
Me and Zach Bingham when it was Chiefs and Eagles in the Super Bowl, there was a couple of different promos going on, and I think we had a little like $6,000 pool between him and I on the Super Bowl that it paid, so made it happen. It was we had a
nervy Sunday. That's a nervy Sunday.
Well, no, we had a system going it was a can't lose system for Zach.
Oh, is that right?
We were good.
Famous last words. I can't lose system.
Hey, betting. Sometimes you just can't lose.
That's right.
That's what they say, right? All right, let's go ahead. Let's move on. Let's get to Ain't That Good News on a Friday. So get that good news in the chat. Ain't That Good News? It is brought to you by our friends over at Wilson County Hyundai. Make Wilson County Hyundai a part of your new car buying process in Lebanon or at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. Good news, good news, good news. Put the good news in the chat. Easton, I'll have you monitoring the chat and just throw up any good news that you might see coming in here.
Sure.
Chat is a little bit slow to the gun here.
Give him a second. I've got one good news from earlier in the show. Karen O'Keefe asked, did we get the 50 likes to keep our jobs? We did. We got 66 likes up there.
Yes, but more. But I'm greedy, so more.
We need more here at the end. Like on your way out, but we do get to keep
like for good news. Like all the good news.
That's right. A couple other comments we need to get to. Contractually obligated. Some super chats here that we're not doing. This is usually Austin's thing.
Oh yeah, we can rattle through this. Yeah,
King VC asked, I feel like Rand this past year signed most of the players we wanted, and now it's not panning out. We are mad. I'm confused. A fair comment. Sam, do you have any thoughts on that?
Not really.
Sometimes it doesn't work.
I mean, this was always the risk of free agency when you try and build your whole team through free agency. Free agency is a poor track record of working out.
You got to draft good players to be good.
That was something that was pointed out about the Titans in the offseason was the volatility of this team. The idea that there is a lot of talent that they've brought in, but it was a lot of old talent. It was a lot of veteran talent. It was a lot of talent that hadn't played in the system before. You didn't know how any of it was going to gel or any of it was going to mesh. And the people that they've ended up bringing in are not people that have gelled or meshed, or some older players that haven't played super well. So it hasn't worked.
Well, and King followed up with something I think we can agree on here. We're also still trying to dig ourselves out of 3 back-to-back drafts from John Robinson. It is excuse making, but it is true that it has set this team up poorly.
That's for sure.
But it has also set this team up poorly at the current moment. The reason why you don't have a good right tackle.
Oh, hey, we're raving about people like Roger McCreary and Dylan Radins on this show as like long-term options and giving Rand credit for them. So that's John Robinson right there, baby.
Okay, relax. John Robinson missed on 3 consecutive tackles, and that's a big part of the reason.
Oh, right. Dylan Radins, future star for this team.
We live in a different world. He's not a good tackle. He was drafted as a tackle. That was a miss. He is a good guard.
What about Peter Skoronski? Was that a miss? He was drafted as a tackle.
Did they say he was going to play tackle?
He was a tackle that they drafted to play guard.
Did they say he was going to play tackle?
I don't know. I would have to go back and watch the press conference.
Let's watch the tape on that. Rashid says we got rid of having a great veteran quarterback to teach Levis. Mason's not it. You didn't get rid of Ryan Tannehill. His contract expired, and he is now.
And he was old and bad.
He's living his best life. Don't worry about Ryan Tannehill anymore.
Ryan Tannehill in this offense is maybe worse. So.
A couple other, that's certainly possible. A couple other rogue comments here. IR Hoshi asking if Easton Freeze is my real name. No, it's a nickname. It's a stage name. Sam knows my real name. Don't tell anybody. You could hardly pronounce it, frankly. No, of course, Easton Freeze is my real name. Curtis says Easton is married. I thought he was barely like 20. I am 20. I'll be 25 in 10 days. I am married and I have a child. So I'm glad I look young, I guess. That'll serve me well as I get older. Am I older than you, Sam? I don't think so.
Yes.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay.
You're
When's
older
your
than
birthday?
me. April.
Okay. So by like 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically the same age. Okay. So good news. Now that we've given folks sufficient time to put some good news in the chat here, let's see if there is any. I'm not seeing any service.
Oh, I saw good news earlier.
Okay, yeah, help me out here.
Maybe some of it was okay. Jeff thinks Ohio State beats Penn State and Oregon, embarrasses Michigan. Is this this has not happened yet? Am I right? Like
this is tomorrow. I'm excited because Penn State or Ohio State, that's a 3-4, so that's going to be a good game there.
Bork says good news: trick or treating, major success with the kids. We should have just put in the chat what you or your child's Halloween costume was. That would have been a good substitute here.
I saw somebody earlier asking why you didn't go as Andy this year. Did you consider an Andy costume?
I did not consider any costume this year. No further comments on that. Jake says Jake says good news, headed to watch the Titans' first home win on Sunday.
I like the optimism. I like it.
Chris has good news. He's finally over pneumonia, which is
that's no fun.
Yeah, that was very good news. We got somebody celebrating the fact that Nick Bosa might be available here coming up.
That's I think that's a little bit of a Hey, here's some good news. We are now how many days away? Saturday, Sunday, Monday. We are only 4 days away from not having to listen to political anything, but the commercials on our
anything.
Well, sorry, a lot less of it. But in particular on the football screen, the political commercials, we don't have to listen to those anymore, which will be quite nice.
Yeah.
Tuesday is going to be a day, huh?
Tuesday, I will be doing NFL trade deadline stuff all day, and that will be my concern.
I saw somebody tweet like the fate of the nation is going to be in the balance, but I'm going to be worried about the Lions. The Lions haven't traded for a pass rusher, and it's already 2:30.
Yeah, where is Arden Key? I need my edge rusher.
That's right. That's the focus on Tuesday. That's what's important.
Insert the like the crying lady meme on like the street where like you know what I'm talking about? The Lions, when the Lions don't get an edge rusher at the deadline, and that's what it's used for contextually. So all right. Hey, good show today.
Did you have any good news?
I forgot. Yeah, we have to do our good news.
My good news is the political.
Oh, that was your good news. Oh, okay. Did I have good news? I did, and I'm not sure I even remembered what it was. It was from earlier this week.
Nothing to smile about in your life? That's tough.
Yeah, it's fine.
Why smile? Nothing to smile about.
Yeah, nothing to smile about. It's fine. We're doing all right. Hanging in there. I do have good news. I got a new apartment.
That's right. Congrats.
Yes, good news. Was kind of worried about that.
How close were you to being homeless? I know that the clock was ticking there.
Somewhat close. Yeah, I was staring down the barrel of like nowhere to live, and ended up did a day of tours. Here's the thing, man. Nashville apartments everywhere is not as it seems. Like there's a catch everywhere.
Okay. Like what?
One building, maybe it's not as nice as it looks, right? You got catfished a little bit by the building. You go to the next building and there's a bunch of, it's just as nice. It's everything you want. The fees, there's like an extra $200 a month in fees that are not advertised. I went to multiple 1-bedroom apartments, and it was a 1-bedroom apartment that was actually a studio that was advertised as a 1-bedroom.
So definitively not a 1-bedroom apartment.
Just straight up a lie.
It's a lie. Okay, got it.
On the ad.
What did you say when you got there? Like,
I was like,
what? What the heck?
And I'd be kind and go about like the tour for like 2 seconds, and I would just be like, all right, yeah, well, that
should be illegal. You can't.
I'm really looking forward for a 1-bedroom, not a studio. And so then it was a process. Every tour that I went on, it felt like, hey, that's a problem. And as David says, no more trains. No more.
That's going to be nice. No more trains.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm moving out towards my neck of the woods, down 65.
I've gotten used to the train. I kind of enjoy the train whistle. Sometimes it's very loud. But yeah, I already moving again. Bork says yes. Unfortunately, less than a year later, I'm already moving again. But
did you just move?
Well, I moved at the end of January, like February, and now I'm moving again. But I did not sign a 12-month lease. I move once pretty much every year. I think I've moved every year for like the last like 4 years. So I move every year. That's what happens.
That's a grind.
But you have to in Nashville. These places jack the rates up, and then
This is true. Well, you know what? I'm just glad that we didn't all come into work one day and find out that Sam was having to live in the Titans media workroom, because I felt like we were getting close to that.
I would have just stayed in my car in the parking lot and then just like done that. But
yeah,
I do move
first guy in, last guy out.
I know it sounds insane, definition. But like people talking about me moving all the time, it does sound insane. But literally every place that I've ever lived in Nashville, as soon as my lease is up, they send me a renewal contract, and it's about $200 more than I was paying on the last one.
True.
And then it's just you price me out. The going somewhere else and shopping around allows me to find places that are more affordable. Plus,
and it's easy when you're not settled down. It's easy to pick up and move. That'll get a little harder here.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is also I had to move here. I had a roommate, and my roommate moved out. My roommate got married and moved out, and so he, ended up, I'm not doing a 2-bedroom by myself. I don't need all that space.
Sure.
So, all right.
Well, good show.
Good show. We will have more content coming out later today on A2ZSports.com. Buck Rising will actually not be going live tonight. There's no A2Z Sports primetime on a Friday night. But Easton, you will be on the Game Day show on Sunday afternoon as Titans take on the Patriots at home. Keep it locked in for your written content, and check out our social medias as well for some reels and other stuff coming out later today. Till next time, tighten up. We'll see you later.